Hey guys, this is Codeactual here. I'm going to be teaching you how to properly config the quote example.config. Basically, we're going to rename it to Unreal IRCD config. But this is one of the main important steps that you're going to be needing to do to make sure that your Unreal IRCD is working properly. So let's begin. So if we scroll all the way down to line 60, it'll say IRCD footnet or .footnet.com. This is where you can put in your domain name or wherever the IRC server is addressed at. So, for example, irc.codeactual.com. That's where, quote, I have my IRCD server at, but really I don't have an IRC server. I'm just teaching you guys how to put one on for your footnet. That's the name of your server, Codeactual's server. And we're going to scroll down to line 68. So this is where you're going to put in your first and last name, Codeactual. And this is where you're going to put in the username so people can identify you as the admin. And as for the email, I really don't have an official email, code@actual.com or whatever your email address is. That's where you just want to put it in right there. Now we'll keep continuing on. Alright, so we're going to be at line 117 and also at line 127. So the difference between this block and this block is this one is more open. So if you want to have an open IRC chat, you can have that. Just make sure you change that to 1 instead of 3. So only one person with the same IP can go into the server. Or if you want them to have multiple usernames and under the same IP, then leave it at 3. Change it to 300. I don't know why people would create 300 sessions, but I'm saying it is possible. But I just like to leave it at 1. I don't want to have someone keep coming in, opening up another IRC chat such as Merc, and just basically have another account. It's just a nuisance to me. Now, however, if you do want to have a password enabled, then what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to block this out. You're going to comment out. So you can do with these lines, if we adding the double slashes, it'll comment it out. But that's more of a nuisance. There's a quicker way to do all that here. So you're going to slash asterisk star and asterisk star slash. So that's commented out. Now only this rule right here will apply. So now it's technically password enabled. So as for the IP, what you're going to do is you're going to remove that and put an asterisk right there. And whatever you want your server password to be, password here, whatever that wants to be. And for 20, again, you can have 20 people the same IP logging in, but I only want 1. Now if you don't want that, obviously comment it out. So it will be /star, then //. So now this block doesn't even apply, but this means you would have to comment this here, so it'll allow the function to go through, and now there's no password. Now let's scroll down to 147, the line Opera. Basically, this is your admin privileges. Now what I'm going to be doing is changing it to Codeactual and class Opera and mask asterisk at asterisk. So this right here, if you want to secure yourself and make sure you're the only person who can authenticate and be an administrator, no one else can take your username if they somehow know your password, this is what I would do. go to IP Chicken and get your host name. So basically the 192.0.0.1, but in this case there's dashes. It will show up in the concept if you had Comcast. So, but I don't. This is a home IP, basically local. If you're a nerd, if you know what it is, obviously you should if you're doing networking. But you want to get rid of the IP and just have your host name by itself, and just copy that on over and add it after the asterisk. So it should look like this. Then not only you're the only person with this host name that you'll be able to authenticate yourself as the administrator. I mean, other people in your state will have access to it, but what are the chances of them knowing of your password? If you just leave it at test, it's actually very simple to just become the administrator, especially if I lived in your state. But password here, and you can have the password whatever you want it to be. Hopefully it's something strong and not easy for others to even guess. Now what we're going to do is we're going to need some permissions. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the link here and add some permissions in. So when you do open the link, you'll see this. It'll show examples of how to set it up. But, however, if we scroll down a little bit more, you'll see channeled and all these other stuff that's in bold. Those are your permissions. So basically, you want to go through each and every one. I don't have time to explain what each and every one does, but this wiki page will help you understand what the permissions do. But basically, you add each one of what you would like, and you'll just add it to your block. So let's just grab an example here. Scroll all the way down. I'm pretty sure there's more examples. There is. Awesome. So this is where you're going to copy, and you're going to open up the notepad backup, and let's just open up a new tab here, and let's just copy this. So this is where you're going to put this right here. And this is where you start adding all the permissions. So let's hop back over to the wiki page and just grab whatever. And what you're going to do is you're going to press enter. So right underneath the K line, you're going to add the permission and make sure that you add the semicolon. So again, it can be anything any permission that you want. Add the semicolon, and basically you're adding the permissions. Then what you're going to do is just, copy this back on over and place it right here. But for now, I'm not so worried about it, so I'm going to leave as is. I'm just letting you know to add permissions to your operator/administrator account. Now, let's start scrolling some more. So, the standard IRC port. So, if you're running a server locally, there is a video that I do have. I'll link it down below of how to port forward. But if you're going to run it on the default port 6667, then make sure your ports are open. If you are running on an SSL encryption, make sure that you have that SSL configurations installed and whatnot, and port for the 6697. If you don't like any of this ports, and some ISPs, internet service providers, they do block those ports, so you can change it to 1000. You can change it to any number, just as long as it is below this number here. So it can be anywhere between 1 and that. But I always leave it by the default. It always depends on your internet service provider. That's if you're running it locally. If you do have a Windows dedicated server that you purchase from a hosting, then you don't really necessarily need to worry about that because everything's already open. You just gotta wait for the port to actually open up, then people will connect. But this is if you're running on a home computer. Now the difference between these two is this is unsecured, but it's easy to configure. This is secured, but for users who don't understand what SSL encryption and how it works, you're gonna have a little bit of tough time. But I would definitely recommend looking into it because in today's internet world, you always gotta have something secured. But for right now, we're just gonna leave it as is. We're gonna comment it out, and same concept, the SSL, TSL. But we're not going to be worried about that as well. We are also going to comment it out. I've got to make sure you comment out it correctly or else you're going to have problems. Comment out this block. Comment out that. So now, again, commenting these out, these settings won't apply, so they won't conflict. And now this right here, you're going to change it to irc.codexual.com or whatever you had your host name is. So this would be on 211. Now let's scroll all the way up. Back on to line 60. Those two need to match to whatever you typed it is. So back to 211. So we'll keep scrolling, and what we're going to do is change this to an asterisk. Change this to irc.codexual.com. And right now we're not running on an SSL, so we're just going to comment those out and also the port, and we're going to leave that how it is. As for the password, so basically these are your SSL fingerprints. We're not necessarily going to be worried about that. Go ahead and comment those out. Then the ULANs for the service names. irc.codexual.com. And so these are the passwords for if you want to restart. So all you have to do is type in /restart and then the password. So, and your IRC, and it'll restart the server here for you. So we're just going to change it to something that's just secured, so people can't, mess up your server. Obviously, it does not have to be this. This is just, again, an example. But we're going to change it all back how it is. Now this is your logs. So if something happens, if you know how to configure it, it logs through everything. And this right here, this is for your NOPI IRCD configurations. I'll be showing you how to set this all up in another video. So ban IP, basically if you have a spam bot that constantly comes in with the same IP, you can just go ahead and put the IP right there and just ban them. You don't necessarily need to copy the whole block and just do that. No, all you can do is get the mask, put it down again, down, 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 so on and so forth, and just replace it with each and every new IP. So that's one way just to ban an IP, someone who's a spammer or someone you just don't like. Now as for the mask, you're going to leave that as is. These are just prime examples for bad servers or banning other servers that are connecting. So banning users, you can have their host name and also their username of what they have in. You just leave these as default. So if you want to ban someone with the SWAT team or Merc Force, so that's the reason why you ban them, because it's part of the Merc Force. And the mask, basically that's within their host name. And if they have a real name, you can also put that in and just ban them. So I'm going to leave that as is. And accept ban. Basically, this is you put the IP address on a whitelist. As for this one, it's fairly new to me. I don't know the functionality of this one yet. Now, deny DCC. So it's like a direct message, but you're sending files through. And so you can deny anyone. You can also deny channels, such as, so basically, asterisk, so that's a wild star, or a wild card, and whereas is illegal, and another asterisk. So if I wanted to ban someone creating a channel, let's just say channel, then quote, asterisk, and there's like some bad word that they put, and asterisk. So anything with a bad word, it'll be the bad word that you put it in will be banned from the channel. The channel will not generate here through. And we'll just take that back out. Now this, you can leave it as is. You don't need to worry about that. But what we are going to do is your net. This is where you will put the server name, codeXual, and codeXual.com. 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 So you want to replace all those with your domain. And this is your help channel. So if someone were to type in /help, it'll show the help channel that everyone's like their own tech support. You go to them. It's like, hey, I need help. These cloak keys, very important. What I do is I make sure I match the same length of the first, and you just basically smash your keyboard like if a cat were to step on it. Make sure you add some numbers into uppers and lowercase. It does matter, and it has to be the same length. Smash my keyboard again like nothing ever matters. Capitalize some crap, numbers, and that's practically it for that. Fairly simple. I'm going to keep scrolling down. Alright, so that's basically the simple way how to configure a IRCD, unrealircd.conf. And after you're done with that, you're going to save it. Obviously, you're also going to rename it as well, and you're going to put it into the directory, the configuration directory. So let me go ahead and open that up. So when you're in the directory, your IRCD, so it's going to be under your docs folder, then it's going to be under your config, and make sure you name it as unrealircd.config, or else you're going to have some problems. So let's go ahead and minimize that, and let's look for the file. So it's not that hard to rename a file. If you guys don't know how, then I feel so bad for you. But then you're going to drag and drop it into your directory, and make sure the entire, or at least the config, is into the root directory. So all right here. Then you're not going to have problems. So that's basically how you set up everything and how to configure the example.config or the unrealircd.config. Fairly simple. It just takes a little bit of your time. Well, if you guys find this information here useful, please subscribe, like the video, support me as I continue to make videos, share it, send it out to the world. If you guys do have problems, comment below and I'll be more than willing to assist you further to make sure, we can get your Unreal IRCD services up and running. Other than that, stay tuned.